If you know anything about bus rapid transit in America, you'll probably know about the HealthLine in Cleveland. As one of the first modern bus rapid transit lines in the country, both the public transit agency, the Greater Cleveland RTA, and various other organizations have praised its quality service and looked towards it as a model for other bus rapid transit systems nationally.
Bus rapid transit, as it is in Cleveland,
it's considered a national model, attracting this tour group of Kansas City officials and previously Mayor Carl Dean.
We've got the best BRT, the HealthLine, in the world.
But if you actually ride Cleveland's HealthLine today, or have at least watched Classy Whale's video with Miles, you might have a slightly different perspective.
This is genuinely one of the most confusing maps I've ever seen in my life for a single line system.
We'll be waiting here for the next 20 minutes, but it will come eventually.
So I'm not sure where we're supposed to scan our ticket. So they tell you the attraction, and by the time they finish telling you the attraction, you can't pull the cord?
BRT, it says as we sit. We've kind of been sitting here.
So, what's going on? Let's start from the beginning. This is Euclid Avenue. It's a key corridor connecting downtown Cleveland and University Circle. These are the two largest job hubs in the city. Although Cleveland's Red Line Metro does connect these two destinations on paper, it largely misses this corridor and its major employers. So Euclid Avenue was and remains home to some of the most used transit routes in the region. This makes Euclid Avenue the logical corridor for rapid transit. And indeed, Cleveland has studied rapid transit along Euclid Avenue, from proposals for underground subways in the 1930s to street-running light rail in 1995. However, no rapid transit was ever fully funded or built. In the 1970s and 80s, cities such as Curitiba, Brazil, and Ottawa, Canada were developing a new form of rapid transit. Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT. This is a rapid transit service that uses buses, but has the features of rail rapid transit that make it rapid, such as signal priority and dedicated lanes. If you want to know more, check out Ethan's video over at Climate and Transit. In 1998, the Federal Transit Administration, or the FTA, saw the power of bus rapid transit in these cities. Wanting to build similar systems in the United States, the FTA initiated the Bus Rapid Transit Demonstration Program, which sought to build some of America's first modern bus rapid transit systems. As a medium-sized city looking to build rapid transit with a tight budget, Cleveland was the perfect candidate. So, Cleveland was awarded federal grants, which covered roughly 80% of the $200 million cost to construct this new bus rapid transit line on Euclid Avenue. Groundbreaking on the Euclid Corridor transportation project began in 2004, and by the fall of 2008, Cleveland had its first bus rapid transit line, the Silver Line, later branded as the HealthLine. The HealthLine has many features typical of bus rapid transit. When you arrive at the station, you pay and validate your fare at a ticket vending machine instead of lining up on the bus. At the station, you have screens telling you when the next bus arrives. During peak times, you only have to wait up to 5 minutes for a bus. When the bus does arrive, you can enter through any of the 3 doors, allowing more people to board at once. Level boarding also makes it faster for those with mobility challenges or carrying luggage. As you ride down Euclid Avenue, the bus bypasses traffic using dedicated bus lanes and usually does not stop at red lights thanks to signal priority. The HealthLine finally promised a faster, more reliable transit connection between the economic hubs of downtown Cleveland and University Circle. So, you might be asking, what went wrong? Soon after the HealthLine opened in 2008, riders noticed the bus was 10 minutes slower than originally promised, mostly because it was stopping at red lights. This was a problem signal priority was supposed to solve, so it quickly became obvious that someone had shut off the signal priority. To make matters worse, the RTA refused to actually confirm if and why signal priority was turned off, instead telling people to ask the city traffic department, which manages the signals. And of course, the city refused to answer any questions. However, the chair of the RTA Citizens Advisory Board stated that he heard a city officials say that, quote, important people in cars were pissed that they had to wait for a bus to make their left turn into work, which prompted the city to shut off signal priority. And as of 2025, many believe signal priority is still shut off on the HealthLine.
You've kind of been sitting here for a little while.
frequency also worsened afterwards. When the HealthLine was introduced, buses came every 5 to 10 minutes at peak, every 15 minutes all other times of the day, and every 30 minutes overnight. The 2008 recession and the 2020 COVID pandemic resulted in serious service cuts that many transit agencies never recovered from, and the RTA was no exception. The HealthLine would lose its 5 to 10 minute peak frequency, now running every 15 minutes all day. Moreover, as part of service cuts, the RTA eliminated parallel bus routes, forcing those riders to use the HealthLine instead. This potentially explains why the HealthLine still saw stable ridership in 2010, while all other routes lost riders. Okay, so before I begin, if you don't know what proof of payment is, go watch Armed Transit's video, or else nothing I say next will make sense. On July 13th, 2017, 2 RTA police officers boarded the HealthLine and began checking for fares. They found a Mr. Ronnie Williams without a fare card and charged him with fare evasion. However, Mr. Williams had attempted to purchase a fare card at a ticket vending machine, but since it was broken, he instead paid his fare on board the bus, which does not print fare cards for one-way rides. 3 months later, the Cleveland Municipal Court ruled in favor of Mr. Williams.
The ordinance prohibits fare evasion. There's no proof in many cases that they actually actively intended to avoid paying the fare.
Additionally, the court ruled that using armed, uniformed police officers to enforce proof of payment was considered unreasonable search and seizure, a violation of the Fourth Amendment.
RTA police officers are decorated under the color of law, and therefore prohibited from such conduct under the Fourth Amendment.
This is because police were searching every passenger without reasonable suspicion that they didn't pay their fare. It would be as if police decided one day to pull over every single driver on the highway without reason so that they could search your car to see if you had anything illegal. However, the court did not state that fare enforcement in of itself was unconstitutional.
Mere fare enforcement officers would not invoke Fourth Amendment protection. As a matter of fact, had the RTA utilized non-law enforcement officers, a constitutional analysis would be unnecessary.
However, the RTA responded by eliminating proof of payment. Instead, the RTA began requiring HealthLine riders to validate fares at the front of the bus. This change began to severely slow down buses, as the vehicle would wait at a stop while a line of riders validated their fares. This is all despite the fact that the RTA still used proof of payment on the red line. In 2022, many thought this would change when the RTA introduced transit ambassadors. However, 3 years later, the RTA still has not reintroduced proof of payment on the HealthLine.
So I'm not sure where we're supposed to scan our ticket.
There's like a scanning scan at the front door, but not back here, so I guess I walk.
Many of these problems were alterations from the original plan, and therefore easier to fix. The city of Cleveland could turn on signal priority. The RTA could switch back to proof of payment. However, there are problems that are inherent to the original design of the HealthLine that are more difficult to address. Beginning with this. The purpose of bus lanes is to allow transit vehicles to bypass traffic. However, you lose that ability if cars use the bus lane, which is the case on Euclid Avenue. So why are cars driving in the bus lane? Are all those drivers anti-transit Randall O'Toole supporters from the Indiana State Legislature yelling about how bus lanes are destroying their God-given right to drive everywhere? Maybe, but probably not. The likelier explanation is that it's not always obvious that this is a bus lane. Beyond a thin white line and the occasional bus-only text, there's not much indication you should not drive your car here. All it takes is one driver to think there are 2 car lanes, meaning they can park in the right lane. This forces all other drivers into the bus lane, blocking the bus. However, there is a solution. Some cities have made bus lanes more visible by painting them red. This reduces car incursions by 30 to 50% according to NACDO. Moreover, agencies such as the New York MTA have begun placing cameras on buses which find cars that are illegally parked or driving in the bus lane. If the HealthLine has painted lanes or better enforcement, it would significantly improve travel times for riders. Now that we've talked about bus lanes, let's talk about the stations. Determining the distance between stations requires determining how much you are willing to trade access for speed. On one end of the spectrum, you have the local bus. Per RTA standards, local buses typically have 6 stops per mile. This way, many people are within a very short walking distance of the bus stop. However, this also means a high ridership bus is going to travel at around 10 miles per hour on average, as it has to stop at every block. On the other hand, you have the rapid portion of the green and blue light rail lines, with 1 to 2 stations per mile. You would need to walk farther to get to a stop, but the train travels on average 30 miles per hour since it doesn't need to stop as often. One is not better than the other. Both local and rapid service serve different but important roles. However, the purpose of bus rapid transit is to function less like a local bus and more like light rail rapid transit, to connect destinations quickly. One way it does this is by having larger station spacings. Yet, the HealthLine has some of the smallest station spacings of any bus rapid transit line in the United States, with station space a fifth of a mile apart and some stations within a 2 to 3 minute walk of each other. In contrast, Indianapolis's Red Line and Columbus's proposed West Broad BRT have stations spaced a half-mile apart, and Cincinnati's proposed BRT lines would have station space a half-mile to 1 mile apart. The original light rail proposal for Euclid Avenue only called for 12 stations along the 6.8-mile corridor. In contrast, the HealthLine has 39 stations along that same corridor. That's an additional 27 stations. Not only does this significantly slow down the HealthLine, but more stations with complex equipment means more equipment to maintain, increasing costs. In fact, in a survey of transit agencies that operate BRT, the Cleveland RTA was one of the only agencies to state that they had difficulty maintaining their BRT stations, and especially their ticket vending machines, calling the system overbuilt. As an aside, this problem also seems to be unique to Cleveland. The RTA is currently planning 3 more BRT lines, including one along West 25th Street, that, excluding segments along bridges, has 5 to 6 stations per mile, incurring a per-mile cost as high as the new Indigo Purple line, but would travel slower with significantly fewer BRT features. It's clear that the RTA now defines BRT not as a new rapid transit service that connects destinations, but as a high-access local bus with some priority features, which is not a bad thing, but that's not bus rapid transit. I might cover this in a future video, but that's the end of my rant right now. You might have heard about
BRT creep?
Creep. BRT creep.
This is a phenomenon where local residents and politicians slowly pare back BRT features, such as signal priority on a BRT line, similar to what has happened on the HealthLine. The common reason given is that people have lower expectations for bus compared to rail, and are therefore more comfortable paring back features for bus rapid transit compared to light rail rapid transit. So, the takeaway of this video is that bus rapid transit sucks, and light rail will always be superior. So, let's stop building BRT and start building light rail. So, actually, I would disagree with this. First of all, replacing buses on the HealthLine with light rail vehicles would address almost none of the existing problems. In fact, if the HealthLine was intended to be light rail, it's possible that it would have never been built in the first place due to the cost. Moreover, the HealthLine is still faster than the 6 Euclid, the local bus route it replaced, saving roughly 6 minutes on the schedule between Public Square and the Stokes-Windermere Rapid Station during peak travel times. And it is still a more comfortable, convenient option thanks to median stations, level boarding, off-board fare payment, and bus lanes. Outside of the largest cities, very few transit lines in the US have headways as good as the HealthLine, with 15-minute headways even after 11 p.m. on a Sunday and 30-minute headways overnight. When it comes to the causes of BRT creep, the reason why people have low expectations of BRT is not because buses are inherently bad. It's because the United States has neglected bus riders and bus service for far too long. It's also because building any rapid transit project on the surface of a busy street is going to be a challenge, requiring negotiations with the city's streets department, state transportation department, local businesses, drivers, and other parties. Therefore, the solution to BRT creep shouldn't be a more expensive light rail line that is shorter and will benefit fewer riders. Instead, when it makes sense to build BRT instead of light rail, we need to build more quality BRT. It is therefore up to local advocates, elected officials, and the transit agency to make sure that by labeling a project as bus rapid transit, that it's actually rapid transit, and not just an improved local bus route with some better stations and maybe some priority features. Cities such as Indianapolis, Indiana, and Madison, Wisconsin show us that when BRT is done right, it can provide more extensive rapid transit service for cities and routes that just don't have the funding or ridership to justify light rail. In Cleveland, St. Louis, Detroit, and many other similar cities, continued sprawl without population growth has meant that local transit service has been spread far too thin, serving destinations that are becoming farther and farther apart. All while transit ridership and revenue continue to fall. But these cities and their transit systems now have another tool to fight that decline. For many of these cities, true BRT could mean the difference between a single rapid transit plan collecting dust on a shelf versus a rapid transit system that can vastly improve our region's mobility tomorrow. It's up to us as advocates, voters, and regular citizens to determine which future we want for our cities. Perhaps we'll choose the one where we give transit the green light.
Strike! Loser! Here we go now. Sing along if you like smoking or BRTs. Smoking on a BRT. Smoke a cigarette with me. Now, honey, you know, we hash this before we get to the Cleveland Clinic. Cause those doctors and cats, they'll say, man, they caught the